Living in 2025, it's pretty crazy to think that there was a time when comic book movies weren't part of a grand cinematic universe interconnected through post-credit scenes and crossovers. In the late 1990s and the early 2000s, superhero films were more of a mixed bag, but one surprising success was Blade, starring Wesley Snipes as the half-vampire Daywalker. People like me grew up with these movies, and we latched on to Snipes' slick, martial arts-infused take on the Marvel vampire hunter, and his trilogy paved the way for future R-rated superhero stories. Yet, after 3 movies, rumors swirled around a possible Blade 4, and people have always wondered what exactly happened. Why didn't we get a 4th Wesley Snipes installment, and how did we end up with a brand new Blade in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? The journey is long and complicated, but in this video we'll dig into all of it, from the beginnings of the first Blade movie to Wesley Snipes' brief return in Deadpool and Wolverine, to the delays that keep plaguing Mahershala Ali's reboot, and more, much more. Before we get into this explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
It's for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
The dawn of the Daywalker. By the late 1990s, Marvel properties were trying to find any foothold in Hollywood. Studios had churned out various adaptations with uneven results, but 1998's Blade captured the audience's attention in a major way. Directed by Stephen Norrington, it followed Eric Brooks, or the superhero named Blade, a half-human, half-vampire warrior whose mission was to eliminate the bloodthirsty undead that plagued the world. Wesley Snipes brought an intensity and conviction to the role that was unlike anything else in the superhero landscape at the time. Audiences ate it up. Critics, not so much. Many of them thought the film was too over-the-top and quote-unquote comic booky, but it made solid money at the box office and found a dedicated fan following that appreciated its R-rated darkness and martial arts flair. That success led to Blade 2 in 2002, with Guillermo del Toro in the director's chair. This sequel took things to a new level. Visually, del Toro's signature style of dark fantasy and horror merged perfectly with the Blade universe. The story had Blade forging an uneasy alliance with a group of vampires to fight off a more dangerous mutation called the Reapers, who threatened not only humanity, but vampires as well. In many ways, Blade 2 broadened the mythos and gave us Snipes as a more seasoned, cynical vampire hunter. Critics were still split. Some loved the visual fest and the expanded story, others felt it lacked cohesion, but the box office returns were strong enough to justify a 3rd film. In 2004, Blade Trinity arrived, directed by David S. Goyer, who had penned scripts for the previous Blade movies. The new movie introduced characters like Ryan Reynolds' Hannibal King and Jessica Biel's Abigail Whistler, part of a younger vampire hunting crew known as the Night Stalkers. If the idea was to spin off into more Blade-related projects or pass the torch to other characters, the execution didn't do it any favors. Blade Trinity was panned by most critics for its messy story and jarring tonal shifts, and it earned a dismal 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. It still made money, but it's often cited as one of the worst Marvel-based superhero adaptations of that era. Right after its release, rumors of more Blade adventures cooled off dramatically, and talk of a Blade 4 with Wesley Snipes never materialized in any official capacity.
There's been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
Rumors, near misses, and spin-offs that didn't happen. Although Blade 4 wasn't formally developed, there were whispers of related projects. One interesting rumor in 2008 teased the idea of a prequel trilogy starring Stephen Dorff, who had played the first film's villain, Deacon Frost. Dorff's Frost died in the original, so a prequel would have chronicled his early days, presumably expanding on vampire mythology. Nothing came of it, but the idea confirmed that there was still interest in using these characters. Around 2016, actress Kate Beckinsale, famed for the Underworld series, mentioned that there had been discussions of a crossover between Blade and her own vampire versus werewolf universe. That too ended in the limbo of rumors. The only concrete spin-off following Blade Trinity was Blade the series on Spike TV, starring Kirk Sticky Jones as Blade. The show picked up after the events of Blade Trinity, although it had no involvement from Snipes or Goyer. It tried to hold on to the vibe of the movies, but it lasted only 1 season before being cancelled due to low ratings. So why didn't the studio jump straight into Blade 4 back then? The official reason has never been stated, but it's not hard to piece together. Blade Trinity had a horrible production environment with on-set clashes that became the stuff of Hollywood legend. By the time it wrapped, Wesley Snipes had a reputation for being difficult, and stories leaked about conflicts between him and Goyer. One rumor even claimed Snipes attempted to strangle the director at one point. In 2021, Goyer described the making of Blade Trinity as a very tortured production, which lines up with everything the rumor mill had been churning out for years. With that kind of negativity swirling around, plus the trilogy's final film failing to impress critics, the studio probably didn't see a profitable path forward. By 2004, superhero films were changing, especially as Marvel prepared to build its own interconnected franchise. The synergy we see now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't exist back then, but the seeds were being planted. Any attempt to do Blade 4 under those circumstances would have been an uphill battle. When the Blade film rights eventually came back to Marvel, Wesley Snipes expressed repeated interest in returning, but Marvel ultimately decided to recast.
What's inside?
Wesley Snipes' post-trilogy comments. For years after Blade Trinity, Wesley Snipes would casually bring up the possibility of playing Blade again. In 2010, he hinted to MTV News that he'd love another shot. Around 2015, when Marvel had officially reclaimed the rights to Blade, he mentioned speaking with them about a potential return. He had hoped for a new era of the Daywalker, possibly as part of the MCU, but everything changed in 2019 when Mahershala Ali was revealed to be taking over the role. It wasn't a surprise that Marvel recast, given the direction the MCU was heading. They were pulling in younger actors and big names who could still anchor multiple films and TV appearances. Also, behind-the-scenes drama from Blade Trinity still haunted the franchise's reputation. Wesley Snipes, for his part, offered only supportive words for Ali. He acknowledged that Marvel was going in a new direction and stated that he was happy for the fresh take. Fans debated whether he should get a cameo, but so far there's no confirmed cameo from Snipes in the new Blade movie, though the door might not be completely closed, especially after his role in Deadpool and Wolverine. Enter Mahershala Ali and the MCU's vampire future. At San Diego Comic-Con 2019, Marvel Studios stunned everyone by announcing a Blade reboot starring Mahershala Ali. The Oscar-winning actor had personally reached out to Marvel expressing his desire to play the legendary Daywalker, and Kevin Feige and the company were all in. The plan was for Ali's Blade to become part of the MCU's Phase 4 and beyond, making him integral to the future lineup of Marvel heroes. Eventually, Bassam Tarek was brought in to direct, with Stacey Osei Kuffour writing the initial script. That was the official setup, and we were hyped. In fact, Ali technically had his first MCU appearance in the post-credits scene of Eternals back in 2021, though that cameo was just his voice saying, "Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?" as Kit Harington's Dane Whitman flirted with the Ebony Blade. Even if we didn't see Ali in full costume, that one line solidified the fact that Blade was present in the MCU. He was out there, presumably hunting vampires, preparing for a bigger reveal. Naturally, we all started asking where the heck has Blade been all this time? Why wasn't he around during Thanos' invasion? The Infinity Saga spanned a decade of large-scale threats, so you'd think a lethal half-vampire warrior would jump in at some point. Some guessed that Blade had been discreetly cleaning up vampire infestations in the shadows. Others posited that maybe Marvel would reveal his adventures in a prequel film, showing him across various decades since he ages more slowly. Marvel had already shown willingness to explore earlier time periods with Captain America: The First Avenger and Captain Marvel, so a period piece approach wouldn't be unprecedented. Either way, people wanted answers about where Blade has been and how vampires fit into the grand scheme of the MCU. The challenge of introducing vampires to the MCU. The Marvel Cinematic Universe had lightly referenced vampires before Ali's cameo. In Thor Ragnarok, Korg casually mentioned them while mocking a wooden weapon, and in Loki, Mobius and the TVA had dealt with vampires as well as Titans and the Kree. Those lines, they planted seeds for the existence of vampires. If these blood-sucking creatures existed, how long had they been flying under the radar? Were they truly as dangerous as Thanos or the Kree? That's what Mobius implied, which is huge for this sprawling universe. Any upcoming Blade film has a mountain of world building to do. It has to reveal the origins of MCU vampires, explain Blade's personal history, and show why these creatures are on par with cosmic threats. Did Blade fight in secret all these years? Did vampires spread out across some galaxies? Or have they just been lurking on Earth? A lot of these questions feed into the next puzzle. What connection does Ali's Blade have with Black Knight, who wields his own cursed ebony blade. At the end of Eternals, Dane was about to pick up that sword when Blade's voice interrupted him. The ebony blade is known for corrupting its users, so maybe Blade has first-hand knowledge of how that curse works. Some fans even theorized Blade once wielded the ebony blade himself or encountered a prior Black Knight centuries ago, so maybe the next film won't just be vampires versus vampire hunter, it might also be a deeper exploration of the ebony blade's history. Blade telling Dane, "Sure you're ready for that?" might just be translated to, "Dude, I've tried that sword and it's a grand old mess." The indefinite delays. Blade, 2025 or later. Despite the hype and potential story threads, Marvel's new Blade reboot has been stuck in a web of delays. The original plan was for a release in November 2023, but that date came and went with no cameras, lights, or action. The project faced major creative quakes. Bassam Tariq left the director's chair in 2022, replaced by Yann Demange. Then, earlier in 2024, Demange also exited. Without a steady hand at the helm, the film kept slipping further down the release calendar. The script has gone through multiple rewrites, rumored changes to the setting, like a 1920s period piece or a modern story with Blade's daughter, and confusion over whether Kit Harington's Black Knight would appear. Compounding this was the 2023 Hollywood strikes, which halted many productions across the board. All these factors culminated in Marvel removing Blade from its 2025 schedule entirely. They didn't announce a new date, which usually spells big trouble for a project. We worry the film might get scrapped entirely, although the general consensus is that Marvel will eventually make it happen, just probably not before the MCU's current multiverse saga finishes. It's possible that the next available slots might come in 2026 or beyond, after Avengers Secret Wars does its thing. By that point, we'll be 7 years out from Mahershala Ali's casting announcement. It's borderline frustrating yet funny to think that the new Daywalker might officially debut close to a decade after Marvel introduced him. The surprise comeback of Wesley Snipes in Deadpool and Wolverine. While Mahershala Ali waited in limbo, fans got the shock of their lives when Wesley Snipes appeared in Deadpool and Wolverine, an R-rated crossover that brought Ryan Reynolds' Merc with a Mouth and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine together on the big screen. The cameo had Snipes wearing the signature trench coat and shades of Blade. Even more astonishing was seeing him share the screen with Ryan Reynolds again. Famously, rumors circulated for years that Snipes and Reynolds clashed on the set of Blade Trinity, so folks assumed they'd never collaborate again, but the cameo proved everyone wrong. Snipes' Blade was part of a resistance group in the film, standing alongside various characters from different corners of the Marvel Universe. They all had roles to play in battling a greater threat. Fans erupted at the sight of the classic Daywalker. The theater roared like it was 1998 again. Even though he's in his 60s now, Wesley Snipes brought the same presence, cool, intimidating, a bit snarky, reminding everyone why people fell for his betrayal in the first place. He also delivered a line referencing the new Blade situation, something along the lines of, "There's only one Blade, there's only ever gonna be one Blade," which was a not-so-subtle jab at the recasting of Mahershala Ali. That wink to the audience made people think that maybe Marvel should just let Snipes keep playing Blade. Calls for cancel Mahershala Ali's Blade. The cameo reignited a vocal fan movement arguing that Marvel should scrap the reboot entirely. One headline that made some waves read, "Cancel Mahershala Ali's Blade movie and bring Wesley Snipes' Daywalker into the MCU." Snipes himself shared it on social media, playfully writing, "Y'all crazy, ha ha ha." But you gotta note that Snipes didn't back Ali. He clearly wants to fuel the fire and become Blade again, this time with another standalone movie. The reaction on Instagram was huge, with many rallying for more Snipes, and you know what? We kind of agree with the hype. I mean, the entire theater cheered when he appeared in Deadpool and Wolverine, saying they don't know no other Blade and only one Blade whose name is Snipes. Yeah, I know, wrong franchise, but fits perfectly. I must also insist that Mahershala Ali deserves the shot, and the best approach might be a multiverse storyline featuring both. Maybe they could go for a whole two-Blade approach. You see, Snipes hasn't outright refused the idea of returning. If anything, he seems open to more appearances. Meanwhile, the cameo also proved that Marvel can find creative ways to bring back older incarnations of characters for cameo events like Deadpool and Wolverine or a future Avengers Secret Wars. Nothing in the MCU's current approach would rule out having multiple Blades, one in the main timeline with Ali and one from an alternate universe with Wesley Snipes. What do you think? Like, would you prefer this, or do you just want one Blade?
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Where does the new Blade stand? After the indefinite delay, the big question is whether Mahershala Ali will even appear before the end of the multiverse saga. Some theories say that by the time Marvel is ready to properly produce the film, the multiverse arc might be wrapped up. That could push Blade's story squarely into the post-Secret Wars era of the MCU, and maybe that's for the best. Rushing a vampire horror epic with so much built-in mythology could doom it to a face worse than Blade Trinity. And to be honest, we don't want something along the lines of Morbius. On the flip side, dragging out the process for years could kill momentum and overshadow the excitement that once surrounded Ali's casting. Nobody wants a half-hearted, lesser version of Blade. Creative churn has been an ongoing issue. Writers keep taking stabs at the script. Directors are hired, then step away. Marvel has proven it can handle big, interconnected properties, but the behind-the-scenes chaos on Blade feels like a vampiric curse and reminds us of the early days of superhero cinema, where development hell was normal and official announcements didn't always lead to tangible results. For now, we're waiting to see if Marvel can lock down a cohesive vision and production timeline. The one silver lining? If they succeed, we'll get a thoroughly polished story that merges Blade's centuries-long vampire hunts with the modern Marvel world of cosmic threats, dimensional portals, and mutant mayhem. Why Blade 4 never happened, and why it probably never will. Circling back to the original question, what happened to Blade 4? The short answer is that it never truly got off the ground for multiple reasons. The negativity surrounding Blade Trinity, combined with Wesley Snipes' reported difficulties on set, hurt the franchise's reputation. Studio interest in continuing the story with Snipes waned, and as Marvel took back control of the character, they saw a fresh start as more viable. The success of the interconnected MCU made reboots more appealing than reviving older continuities. Plus, the progression from standalone superhero flicks to a massive shared universe meant that any new Blade had to fit into the broader puzzle, and that puzzle already had carefully laid plans for Thanos, the Infinity Stones, and beyond. Snipes never gave up on the idea of reprising Blade, but by the time Marvel reacquired the character, the entire superhero genre had evolved. Snipes could have maybe done a cameo or a guest appearance in a transitional project, but Marvel opted to recast from scratch. Only after years of delays and rethinking have we even started seeing glimpses of the new Blade, so it's not that anyone officially cancelled Blade 4, it was just simply never in the cards. The approach after Blade Trinity was more about spin-offs or crossovers, not a direct sequel. When those collapsed, the franchise lay dormant until Marvel unveiled the reboot with Ali. Now, ironically, Wesley Snipes has made a comedic meta return in Deadpool and Wolverine that garnered more positive fan reactions than the new Blade project has so far, at least in terms of actual footage. But no matter how strong that reaction is, the big Blade 4 with Snipes is almost certainly not happening. The closest fans might get is seeing him appear in future cameo events, presumably crossing paths with alternate timelines or other wacky multiversal twists. If you told anyone back in 2004 that Snipes would step back into the vampire hunter role in a movie starring Deadpool and Wolverine, they'd have called you nuts. Yet that's exactly where we are. The road ahead. Could Snipes and Ali both be Blade? We're now living in an era of Marvel storytelling where multiple versions of a single character can coexist. We've seen several Spider-Men come together and do their thing. The Doctor Strange sequel literally tore open the multiverse. Deadpool was hopping around dimensions like the sacred timeline was a jump rope, so why can't we have Wesley Snipes' Blade remain an alternate dimensional figure, while Mahershala Ali's Blade becomes the main timeline version? The cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine proved fans are more than willing to see Snipes slicing vampires or anything else again, even if it's not a full solo feature. Whether it happens depends on how the big brass at Marvel structures the endgame of the multiverse saga in Avengers: Secret Wars. If that giant cosmic collision involves cameo appearances and short arcs for heroes from every corner of Marvel's live-action past, it's hard to imagine them missing the chance to bring Snipes back. The audience response to him was enormous. He has a built-in nostalgia factor from launching Marvel's first real box office success that wasn't a one-off or a flop. If you're celebrating all eras of Marvel on film, including the weird bits like the first Fantastic Four movie and various X-Men timelines, how could you ignore the original Daywalker? And what about Mahershala Ali? If his version doesn't show up soon, fans might lose interest, especially newer viewers who are less attached to Blade as a character. those who do care about Blade may gravitate back to Snipes, forming a bigger movement to keep him around. Marvel could end up with two fan-favorite Blades, which is both a blessing and a headache. The best solution might be to push ahead with a well-constructed Ali-led film post-Secret Wars, then let him stand on his own without the constant comparison to Snipes. For now, let's just settle with saying that although the Daywalker's cinematic destiny is still passing through a mysterious dark place, one thing that's certain is that you can't keep Blade down forever. Whether it's Snipes or Ali, vampires should be very, very scared. That's all we got for you this time, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.